rather grievous has happened in the world for the past few weeks, on top of all the other grievous things that have happened. And it's important to remember certain things when it comes to warfare and all these other miserable topics. And today, although I usually talk about things that have to do with marketing insights, I am going to quickly address something which has a little bit to do with marketing, or more like PR, or some might call it propaganda. And at the same time, it has to do with national security. What am I talking about? Well, there are certain nations in the world which possess nuclear arsenals, atomic bombs, if you will, nuclear warheads. One of those nations is reportedly Israel. And, of course, while they officially deny it, or the government of Israel officially denies having nuclear warheads, it has also on a number of occasions not very much denied it. And it's been rather ambiguous. But the point is, and they do that for strategic reasons, right? They do that ambivalence for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons that they do that is because they don't want to be bound by something like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And at the same time, they want to be able to deter, without having to say it in so many words, people who have bad intentions and aspire to destroy the state of Israel. But what this should remind everybody is that, even though it may sound absolutely horrendous, and it is, and the fact is, the very existence of the state of Israel is currently under threat. And no, I don't mean by Hamas. Hamas did an awful thing on October 7th, but they were beaten back relatively quickly into Gaza. And yes, they have a couple of hundred hostages, and that is absolutely horrifying. And there are frankly no words that can be said to console any relative of anyone who's captured and who is living in a living hell in Gaza right now as a prisoner of one of the most brutal, barbaric terrorist groups on the face of the earth. Now, of course, the Hamas does not represent all the Palestinian people. Not even by a long shot, right? Necessarily. But a lot of Palestinians do support them, especially those in Gaza. Okay, nevertheless, they do not represent a mortal threat to the state of Israel, at least not at this time. Do they represent a threat? Yes. They've already actively engaged that threat and caused massive amounts of death and destruction and injury and horrifying things in Israel. However, the arsenal of the Hamas is clearly far less than the arsenal of the IDF and the capabilities of the IDF. And yes, if there was a full ground invasion into Gaza by the Israelis, you would probably see a lot of Israelis get killed in action. And that is one of the reasons, arguably, why Israel has yet to do a full-scale invasion of Gaza, despite saying that they were going to now attempt to wipe out the Hamas. Well, okay, that being said, what is exactly the big threat to Israel? If it's not Hamas, if Israel didn't feel the need to immediately invade Gaza, and immediately wipe out Hamas, even though they're fighting them and dropping bombs on them at a very high rate and causing mass casualties, intentional or not. There are lots of Palestinians in Gaza losing their lives, most of whom who are not engaged in combat, most of whom who did not, carry out acts of terror, and that has to be said. And it is, some will say, an unfortunate casualty of war. I would say, no, it's more than that. It's a military decision decided by political leaders as to what to do. And it's unfortunate, and it's more than unfortunate. It is in many ways wrong, and it's almost indefensible. Now, you can say, well, maybe it's not entirely indefensible because Israel has to defend itself against terrorists. And I would say, yes, Israel definitely has to defend itself against the terrorists, but it does not need to do what it is doing. And yes, cutting off water and electricity is a strategic move by the Israeli government, but it's also inhumane. Yes, the people there could have built up their own assets in all this time, and they didn't. But again, that is a different matter altogether.